And our scene is set in St. Augustine's Church in Reno. Well, not necessarily in the church. The kindred who have gathered there tonight had to pass through it, though. Several retainers of the prince set the path for those who did not know yet where the night church that lies beneath the church proper was. But for those who had been in the city for a while, this was maybe not necessarily routine, since this is the first time the Theocracy had held any real political power besides their position as a coterie. But they have heard about where the entrance is. Several of the residents of the city had gathered here tonight for the midnight mass that Prince Ricardo Alvarez is giving to the kindred of the city. And so they filed down the stairs, through the hidden passage now laid open, and into the large chamber beyond. The lamps along the wall are a slight orange gleam. Shadows flicker as the kindred take to the pews. As Ricardo Alvarez stands at the head of the congregation and gives his speech, beneath the unblinking eye of the Beabus painted above. Good evening. Good evening, one and all. I hope you had all had a pleasant Easter. Yes? No? I have called all upon you to give you all a friendly reminder. A lot has been happening in Reno recently, and I thought it would be prudent for me to speak to you, not as your prince, but as the Archdeacon for the Nox Theocracy of this city, the means by which you all can know the grace of our faction's noble leaders. It is by this that I would like to tell you that there is a lesson to be learned from the story of Easter, especially for our kindred, about resurrection. For, while I would never say we enjoy the pleasure of true resurrection, it is a word we are all very familiar with. For we are not all alive. In fact, every single one of us is unquestionably dead. We may try to know once more what it was to be alive by holding on to that most greatest aspiration, holding on to humanity. But it is something that we will never have again in this life. But still, the alternative is final death. So I'd like you all to think on that, to think on resurrection, in what you have done with your second chance at life, which for some of you I see, as he smiles at some of the more elderly kindred in the room, has been quite long indeed. For there is no greater sin than to squander a second chance at life. And there is so many people out there, dangerous people, who do just that. They squander the gift of resurrection. They use it to indulge in selfishness and put all the rest of us in danger. So, for those of you out there, don't squander the gifts you have been given. Use them wisely. Use them honestly, and reap the reward of maybe not having life, but coming so close you can taste it. For there is nothing sweeter than that. But while you think on that, I do have a couple of announcements. This city is going through some changes, as you all know. The former prince, some of you might not be aware of, has received an honorable commission and has moved up in the ranks of the Camarilla. Suffice it to say, he will be missed. But it means that there is a new prince in town, and with it, a new beginning, as it were, going back to that theme of resurrection. And I believe that Reno is ready for one such resurrection. I would like to put forth for all of you a group contest, as it were. I would like to give this city, this princedom, something to rally behind, something that you can all relate to, a symbol that unites us, even in times of darkness such as these. And for that, this contest, all residents of the city are eligible for it. You may submit a proper name for which this princedom will be officially recorded as. For all great princedoms have a name separate from the city that they hide in, as well as a standard by which we can draw inspiration from and use to instill fear in those who would squander their immortality. Submissions will be needed at the end of the month's time, and those who are selected will receive not only the support of the prince, but also one minor boon, a very auspicious prize indeed. So think on this, and think on resurrection this night, kindred of the city. Go with grace unto God, and may we all enjoy the blessings we are given. And with that, the Mass comes to an end. Several of the kindred give their thanks to the prince. A few of them stay behind, those who had called in ahead of time, for this has been a very eventful night indeed for some members of the city. And taking them into the church proper above, not the classroom, but to the proper chapel above, the prince, as his meeting, as the very last of the residents of the city leave. He sort of leans against one of the walls as he is surrounded by Emma Bellafleur, Diedrich Graves, two people he's very familiar with at this point, and one he is not, the sheriff, Karl Voltaire.
Carl, not being in his normal form, will politely introduce himself to the group as a whole.
The prince will smile and say, "We meet at last.
My prince.
I hope you have had a good evening, Mr. Voltaire. I did not expect to see you with my two initiates. I hope they have not been causing any trouble."
Not at all. Both have been of great assistance to the office of sheriff.
That is fantastic news. But that does beg the question. Just how have they been of assistance?
And he starts at the beginning at the Silver. At the casino owned by the Falcones, or recently owned by Frum, now owned by the Falcones, and that Gianni Falcone appeared to have been murdered outside the casino, except he didn't fall into a pile of dust as one would expect. The body remained. We found out that whoever was lying there wasn't Gianni Falcone, but his double, the security double, who fulfilled his role admirably.
I have heard of these unfortunate events. I am still curious as to who would dare have the premeditation to plan out such an attack on one of Mr. Falcone's family. Those who tend to also have been known to suffer very suicidal tendencies, if you know what I mean.
Carl pulls out a folder and said, there are a bunch of, or a gang of bikers that have recently come into town. And he opens the folder, and on a page there's this, what looks to be on sort of like pink sort of leather or maybe pigskin or something, the symbol of Baphomet sitting cross-legged. They call themselves the Sons of Baal. But it's actually human skin, if anyone has the medicine to notice.
I know for a fact the prince does not. But nonetheless, the imagery definitely sets off some red flags for him. Have you learned anything else about this Pine biker gang?
I didn't want to pursue the matter too aggressively without first bringing it either to Mr. Falcone's attention, considering his personal involvement. He's lost a number of foot soldiers, and his influence over the drug trade in the city is under threat. The gang themselves seem to be a West Coast gang from around San Diego.
Interesting.
As
the prince leans in ever so slightly.
And it's very possible that they are backed by a kindred or a kindred.
It's good that you brought this to my attention before pursuing the matter. You have exercised wisdom. Proceed. Find out who these individuals are. Find out who is backing them and why they targeted Mr. Falcone's family. If they are simply Kine, trying to get a leg up on the Seneschal's influence and resources, make sure to alert him and myself, and then you may either assist Mr. Falcone in his personal business, if that is what he desires, if they are backed by Kindred, though, or any other masquerade-threatening parties. After alerting me and the Seneschal, bring this information to Miss Blackmoon. She has considerable influence with the police.
He recognized me for what I am. So,
What?
he recognized me for what I am. So,
You'll see. Continue.
So they have some knowledge of what we are. And I was in my true form, rather than the mask that I wear.
You'll see the expression of the prince is like ice, giving no emotion, except for the eyes. The eyes are piercing. You will look at each of you in turn, finally settling upon Mr. Voltaire, and he will say, "This is a different matter entirely. You have done exceedingly well to capture one of these individuals, then. Use any means at your disposal, so long as it is within the traditions, to get the information out of this individual."
I have recruited the gangrel Mike and your coterie member Emma as hounds. And I'd also like permission to call upon Mr. Graves.
Graves looks quite shocked as you say that. He has a bit of a surprised look, and we'll just look at the father to wait for his response.
Let's see. The prince... Actually, I think I am going to have to roll manipulation subterfuge right here to hide what the prince is thinking. It's going to be... I think 6, so... We'll go difficulty 6, just normal.
Yeah, it's either plus or minus dice, not difficulty.
Oh, right. So he does a moderate job. He's just been getting a lot of bad news tonight. He's surprised about something, but he does a good enough job to hide exactly what, as he looks at Mr. Voltaire. And he will simply say, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I am very, very pleased to hear that Miss Bellafleur and Mr. Graves had proven to be of assistance.
Invaluable.
They might possibly have a future as hounds of the city."
It is rare that, or as I said to one of the party last night, if we get into combat, then we have lost. It is much better to win through knowledge rather than through direct violence.
The prince considers your words for a minute. He'll just sort of nod his head and say, "Consider Miss Bellafleur and Mr. Graves as honorary hounds for now, for they have yet to become true members of this coterie. But if they succeed, consider this a job well done and a test completed, as Yolan smile at his two initiates. If that is what you two desire, of course. Do you accept the challenge that the sheriff wishes of you? Especially what that might entail.
Grace pauses for a while as he sort of says things. Though I'm not one used to direct fighting, but I am willing to play the role out as an investigator or someone who studies the crimes that are committed against the kindred.
Having a knowledge of medicine and death is most useful.
Yeah, I can see how this can be applied to the role.
I have one last question before I move on.
Emma will actually step forward. She will say, I am still to show the sheriff my skills in my favored form of the battlefield, and as she steps forward, she'll let her shadow go, so she'll the sheriff will see that Emma's shadows looks like that. And she goes, I will accept the challenge.
There is one question I have left for my friends. Do you wish me to remain in the position of sheriff?
You have been honest with me, Mr. Voltaire. I will be happy to return the favor. You are new to this city. What normally would have taken months you were able to do in a matter of hours. That either means the prince owed you a very large favor, or the prince was absolutely certain of your skills as sheriff. Much like these two, let this mission be a test. Prove to me that you are the best choice for sheriff.
I think I can do that.
Good. In that case, you have my permission to take the necessary steps.
And rather a strange figure, sort of 6 foot, sort of full, dressed in black leathers, with a scar across his throat, mimicking a character that he saw in a film, which is his famous place to actually get the visages. He does a sort of a very foppish kind of bow, both hands circling round, and as he takes a half bow, half curtsy, and he takes a step backwards into the shadow.
Excellent. Is there anything else? Out of character, though, did he just obfuscate away?
No, he's still there. He's just basically taking the step back to allow others now to speak. Considering he assumed the position of the second most important person in the room.
Oh, given. In that case, the prince will look to his two initiates and say, do you two have anything to report on any other matters dealing with the safety of both the bodies and souls of our city's residents?
Mr. Graves?
Yes, I have become aware of an incident that could cause some trouble for us. It appears someone broke into the coroner's office and tampered with some evidence that was believed to lead to a vampire attack.
Yes, I have heard about that. That was not a very wise move.
Well,
Not necessarily the breaking in, of course, but the blatant breach of the masquerade. It's almost like it was left to be found. So, please continue, Mr. Graves.
well, I was informed by Mr. I, or Mario, that his contacts have told him that someone broke into the coroner's office though they do not know whom or what, but obviously the evidence was tampered with or contaminated, and so far they are pointing fingers at the coroner. I will later this evening or tomorrow try to use my influence to make this so.
Good. Very good.
May I ask
But,
a small
yes.
question?
So is he looking at me or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than destroy the coroner, why don't you use this to bind him to...
I have plans being developed at the moment that to extend my influence in this city, and yes, binding the coroner or removing him from office and getting one of our own people in. Again, Mario has suggested that he can use his influence as well to make sure that this occurs.
Interesting. And you didn't find it strange that Mr. Mario was the one who first informed you about this?
He came across as a concerned kindred. Though it would be one of my people who would be in office.
Again, the prince has that impassive look upon his face as he takes in what Mr. Graves has said. He'll simply say, Mr. Mario is the harpy. It is his job to make sure that the princedom is well informed, as well as be the resident rumor monger. Exercise caution when the harpy tries to come up with schemes. They usually result in quite a story around the next Elysium.
These are wise words. I will also take it into my initiative to try to claim the body that was contaminated or altered. I may be able to find out who or what killed it, whether it was Kindred or not.
Good. Very good indeed. I also have a bit of information.
Emma will actually step forward and goes, yes, me and my good friend Calliope took it into our own hands to investigate on the matter of this masquerade breach.
I am not familiar with this Calliope.
She is a member of the Roses.
Ah, that'll explain it then.
I have known her for a number of years.
You have?
I have.
She owns a Black Lotus, which is where I work now. We took as I was saying, we took into our own hands to investigate what at the time seemed like a masquerade breach, and what we confirmed to be one. She was able to tell me that from using her powers, she saw that a kindred had attacked someone and had And she looks a bit disgusted, and she had thrown up the blood afterwards.
You'll see the prince looks confused for just a moment, but then returns back to his impassive state. As he will say, "Good work, Miss Bellafleur."
I believe there is still some more to be imparted.
There is.
Yes. We are the ones who broke into the mortuary,
Coroner's
was
office.
it? The coroner's office, and we did what we could to make the bite marks less evident. Whoever had done this had not licked the wound.
You sought to protect the masquerade.
Yes.
Graves will pause. How did you? Sorry, you tried to make the wounds look like something else beside bites. How?
Calliope used a pencil.
He laughs and just goes, this would explain why they know that the evidence has been tampered with. Did you not collect the photos that would have been taken beforehand, or did you not realize there is post-mortem wounds? They can easily tell that someone has altered the body. It has aroused even more suspicion now.
That is a good point. That's why you're going to assist with this, Mr. Graves.
Emma will say someone had come in while we were already assisting, while we were already looking at the body and took the pictures again.
Yes.
Now you understand why I want this one as a home.
Yes.
And she'll smile.
Mr. Voltaire.
She'll smile. Emma will smile and look at Mr. Voltaire and goes, "As I told you, I was good at hiding. Good enough to make myself and Calliope not seen by the man who had walked in, even though we were in the same room as him."
Well, the prince will relax slightly at this and say, "At least you were not witnessed. This is good."
She will go, "Oh no, of course."
And whilst we can say that the corpse has been tampered with, there is nothing that says it is of a supernatural nature.
She'll say, "Yes, I stand by Calliope's actions. While it tampered with the body, it did erase the chances of a masquerade breach, which is the most important thing to do."
Unfortunately, Mr. Graves is correct in the fact that there are obvious procedures that he is much more aware of than we are.
Consider this next time, Emma. If you are in need to handle a body, try seeking out the aid of your fellow kindred. If we work together, we will succeed. It is simple as that.
Graves nods and I am sure that we can make this mess an opportunity.
I would say maybe we can look for a student or something else there that maybe did this as some sort of radical vote.
Yeah, I'm sure that we will find some way of covering this up. And if I am able to get one of my own men in a position of power, this will also increase our influence in the city.
Very good, then. I can trust, then, that you two will see to this matter.
Yes.
One last question, though. What did this Calliope want in exchange for her assistance?
Nothing. She just asked me. She just told me we should report back to the sheriff when we were done, which I did.
You all will see the prince looks slightly confused again, sort of narrow his eyes and say, "Nothing."
She said it was, after all, a protection of the masquerade, which is something that we all benefit from.
If I may add a bit more information.
As the prince will turn to Mr. Voltaire and nod.
Calliope enjoys excitement.
Ah.
But
As you'll see,
it is not foolish.
Yes. As I said before, I stand by her actions at the coroner's office. I decided not to stop her, and I thought she made the right choice doing what she did.
And she did. And it is because of both of your efforts that a masquerade breach was nipped in the bud, however, tackily, but nipped in the bud none the same. So, well done. I will have to meet this Miss Alvarez sometime. That initiative is not something I have seen too often in the Clan of the Rose for Reno. In fact, oh, nothing. As you'll see, the prince decides against saying something for a moment, and then addresses the three of you, saying, "In regards to this recent masquerade breach, there is something else that I want you three to be made aware of, since the sheriff and you two now are going to be working close together for the foreseeable future. I need you to look into an individual for me. One Father Vic."
Father Vic, which church does he stay at?
That is an excellent question. Just give me 1 second while I look it up real fast. He
And we shall never know.
I know it's here. Hold on a second. Ah. He is of the parish Our Lady of the Snows. I have not heard much about it. From what I am aware of, it is primarily a Kine parish. In fact, I had no knowledge of why this individual would have been giving particular speeches ever since the masquerade breach. Speeches that, well, let us say he has chosen his words either very poorly or very carefully. I would look into it myself if I were you. From what information has been gathered, he appears to be kind. And if that is true, that makes this all the more dangerous. I don't know how, but it is possible that there is a far greater masquerade breach in progress that we are not aware of, especially now that this biker you three have apprehended seems to also be aware of the existence of our kind.
Was he the priest that was seen near the coroner's office?
I am not sure. The last I heard is that he gave comment to a news journalist in regards to the attack against that young lady. I would look up the article if I were you.
Do you want him to forget? Do you want him to disappear? Or do you want him under our control?
I want to know how or why he said what he said. I want him to be observed. I want to see what he's doing. I want to know where he goes. I want to know who he talks to. I want him to be watched for the time being.
May I make a suggestion?
You may.
Obviously, unless we put our mortal agents in play against this priest, we only get to observe him during the night. What I would actually suggest is we use some of the more modern technology. I would be happy to furnish Miss Bellefleur with the appropriate toys.
Emma will smile. She'll say, "It will seem that I can help again in this matter." She was at the coroner's office, well, outside of it, when Calliope and I got out. She was muttering something about revenge, and Calliope seemed scared of what she saw in his aura. Well, he had the aura of a kind. It was something she had seen before and seemed to be afraid of. Something she wasn't entirely sure what it was. Maybe something spiritual.
God,
Maybe something faithful.
Again, the prince will tense up at that, as a fear, a very, very old fear, begins to creep into the back of his very withered mind. Now I must speak with Miss Alvarez. Nonetheless, well done.
I will obtain the telephone records for the parish. I will find out what I can about this gentleman, and within a couple of days we will hear everything he says.
If the prince wishes, I can send my retainer to meet him in person under the disguise of working at the mortuary and its relations with the church.
That's not yet. We must not overplay our hand. Right now is a very, very delicate time.
Understood, my prince.
We may have more trouble than just the kindred variety very soon. Let us proceed with caution.
Carl smiles a little bit. You wouldn't be talking about hunters, would you?
Pray that I am wrong in my suspicion.
Been a little time since the last time I met one of their kind. I will start setting up a false haven just in case.
That would be wise.
Guy's standing there looking confused. Their kind? Not just the human hunters that...
Do not trouble yourself with it just yet, Mr. Graves. Just focus on the task at hand. Focus on finding out what you can about this biker gang. Focus what you can about learning from the victim of the recent attack.
Indeed.
Of course, of course.
Well done, all of you. Continue to protect Reno, protect this princedom, and you will be rewarded for it.
Emma will get a card out and she will say, "This is an invitation to the Black Lotus. If you want to see Miss Alvarez, she will be here. Well, it is not your... I suspect it will not be to your liking as a venue. It is the best place to see her."
This will just sort of look at the card and say, well, it is unorthodox for the prince to go visit someone he intends to summon. It may be best for me to observe her in her natural environment. Good thinking, Miss Bellafleur. I would have a word with you, Mr. Voltaire. Young initiates, you may proceed for now.
Emma will bow with a 3 in etiquettes.
Gray's... Oh, sorry.
And she'll take a few steps back and then walk away.
Yeah. Grays will just nod, and then... But he'll speak and he'll say, one last thing, my prince. I have spoken to the Harpy about hosting an Elysium of sorts soon, where something I will reveal of my studies, something that will change much in Reno. Or
When
change
Emma
Reno
hears-
much.
When Emma hears that, she'll stop and just turn around and get excited.
As the prince will sort of raise an eyebrow and say, and where exactly do you plan to host this Elysium?
I haven't got. Sorry, I haven't got the name of the place, but he gives you a name, and it is the teaching hospital. I have booked the operating area. I need it for both to show my work.
Very well. Just remember that this is an Elysium. If any harm should come to those within Elysium, it will fall upon the keeper of Elysium to shoulder the blame. And since you are going to be hosting, Mr. Graves, that makes you keeper of Elysium. Do you understand?
Yeah, he actually has a bit of a paused, shocked face, and yeah, of course, my prince.
Good. Then you may proceed with my blessing. It has been quite some time since we had a... In fact, he paused for a minute. In fact, this is the first time we have had a Cappadocian-hosted Elysium. I think this will be a flavor we have yet to experience, as he smiles.
So, well, yes, of what I wish to show you will shock many, I believe. And you will not forget it soon.
As the prince will just simply smile and nod.
Emma will just, as Emma sees that, she'll go, "Sounds exciting."
I've taken too much of your time. I thank you, my prince. He will proceed to walk away.
Go with grace unto God, young initiates.
Okay.
And then he will turn his attention to Mr. Voltaire, who had changed his mask in the little dialogue between the three.
Rather than appearing as the tall man in the leather outfit, he's now a much shorter man, maybe 5'8", 5'9". Looks like a cross between Columbo and the lead singer of the Pogues.
As the prince will take a moment to look over the new disguise and then continue with the conversation, saying,
The strange
Are
thing
you
is,
for-
he's actually wearing a long coat now rather than the leather jacket that he was wearing earlier.
"Oh, impressive," the prince will sort of mutter to himself, but then say, "Are you familiar with the policy that Prince From had in place regarding the residents of this city?"
Yes.
And you're familiar with the roster?
No.
Hmm.
I did
Prin-
request a list of the kindred that lived in the city, but I've yet to receive it.
As have I, from Mr. Falcone. Although it is understandable he has been distracted by the recent attack against his family. An attack so blatant, and such a strange reaction to the blood. What do you make of this, Mr. Voltaire?
Do you mean the shooting outside the Legacy Casino?
No, the attack on the young woman.
Ah. The fact that the kindred had vomited blood, I thought it most likely it would be of the Ventru clan. No hungry kindred, no matter how young or how old, would throw up.
Oh, hold on. You sort of, or either you or I froze there for a minute. I didn't hear what you said.
Said, I know of no kindred that would voluntarily throw up blood.
Hmm.
It is
Even
not a reaction to vitae that is not suitable for one's stomach, hence Ventru. Especially if it is a fledgling that does not understand what it is.
I had forgotten about the Ventru's proclivities, but the idea about a fledgling, we're of the same mind. If there is a newly sired vampire in this city, they will not be registered on that roster. Prince had a very specific method for recruiting residents. As the Prince Alvarez just realizes that he referred to the former prince as the prince for a minute and chuckles.
From
And then
did
returns
have
his
that
attention.
effect on people. From did tend to have that effect on people.
Yes, he did.
Do you want to enforce the tradition of progeny?
Yes. I will alert the Harpy. We shall restrict a ban on all kindred for the city, all residents.
May I offer one other suggestion?
You may.
That if the sire comes forward within the next 7 days, then they will have an amnesty against such a foolish action. Whether you choose to give them that amnesty or not is entirely up to yourself, obviously. But it may be the simplest way to flush the game from the bush.
You are just full of interesting ideas, Mr. Voltaire. I think you're going to get along just fine. I will alert Mr. Innocenti about this offer of amnesty.
May I ask a direct question now that we're in private?
You may.
It is said, and it is known, and it is something that I encourage most other kindred to believe. I am a man with very few scruples or morals, that I will do whatever is necessary to get the job done. What scares some kindred is when they find out exactly how true that may be. Do you wish me to be utterly frank in what I report to you, or would you like me to put them in softer terms?
He will sort of look to his left and look to his right to make sure that they are truly alone. And he will say, "When I seek your personal counsel, you may be as frank with me as you like. In the presence of others, you must exercise restraint. We must maintain a positive atmosphere, as it were. After all, this is a sanctuary. Let us deal with the more darker matters in private."
I always believed there needs to be the shining carrots, but the very dark stick. And most of my service has been in the role of scourge.
Thank you for your honesty.
Well, there's little point in me giving you a testimony of someone that I have questioned, only to find that your personal morals or belief system gets in the way of how I have obtained that information. He's obviously choosing his words with extreme care.
Prince will take note of this and sort of nod his head and say, "We all must do what we must to protect ourselves and our place in this world, Mr. Voltaire."
Camarilla must be strong. But there is a time for the velvet glove as well as the iron fist, and I understand that too.
Very good.
But sometimes it's just fun to scare the pants off the near.
There is a time and
Grin's
place.
a rather devilish grin.
There is a time and place for that as well, Mr. Voltaire. I'm sure by the end of this unfortunate series of events, you will have more than your opportunity to do just that.
I will certainly see what I can do to encourage constructive thought in your co-teammates.
All I ask in return is that you do one thing for me. Report to me first.
Indeed.
Good. In that case, you may take your leave if you desire, unless there is anything else you wish to report, or if you just enjoy this pleasant conversation.
The conversation is pleasant, but there are questions that need to be asked that are somewhat pressing. So, if you'll forgive me.
Go with grace unto God, Carl Voltaire.
And again, he gives that kind of sort of almost sort of foppish kind of bow and smiles and takes sort of the 3 paces back before turning and exiting from the church.
As Carl Voltaire begins to leave the church, the prince gets up from leaning against the wall and begins to walk back towards his study, and as he does, the light from the hallway casts upon himself, making his shadow grow long again, The shadow, with a mind of its own, with its clawed hand, almost begins to reach out or carve old her shadow. As it will be a hair's breadth away, it jerks back and screeches in silence, backing away in fear of whatever it was that it almost grabbed. The prince doesn't notice, though, and as he enters the hallway and begins to walk down, his own accursed reflection scurries after him, knowing now that there is far darker things in the night than itself. And with that, our scene will end.